Hello everyone, welcome to this week's video where we'll be discussing single sign-on as an authentication system for a Mendix application. How to configure your Mendix application to use single sign-on as a service, right? So, what is an SSO? So, SSO is basically a system or an authentication service using which you could log in into multiple applications with single username and password. So, one of the examples would be if, say, you have gone on any public website and you see those options say, which says login using Gmail, login using Facebook, right? So it does not mean that the website where you're logging using Google and Facebook, they store your Gmail and or Google and Facebook passwords, but they use Google and Facebook as your authentication server. So um, what it does is it sends a request to Google saying, "Oh, please authenticate this user for me." And if Google says yes, it is a yes, and I allow you to um, use these many attributes that the user has selected, then they will be able to use those resources as well. Now, that's one example. Second would be, say, if you have an organization where you have multiple applications and you want all your employees to log into your application using a single username password into multiple applications, then you might be using something called the Microsoft Office 365, right? Single sign-on service. So those are some of the examples of SSO. But SSO in general are of multiple types. So one is SAML, which is very famous. OAuth is also very famous. OIDC is an update or is a new framework that's built on top of OAuth, and that's what we'll be discussing in today's tutorial. And then there's Kerberos and smart card authentications as well. So SAML and OIDC are the two most used SSOs right now. Um, the there are multiple benefits of SSO, right? So like I said, you can use a single set of username and password per user to help them log in into multiple applications. So this could be internal applications or external applications for an organization. This is a very good article. I'll put the link of this article in the description below, and you can definitely go through this one. Also, OIDC is also something that's a that's a huge framework. So or yeah, and it's a huge protocol which is built on top of OAuth 2.0 framework. And the the content of the video is not to teach you about what an SSO is or what OpenID Connect is, right? So we'll be diving into how to configure an our application to use SSO, um, and then you should be able to find these links in description to understand more about OIDC and SSO. Now remember, this is a multi-part video, so or multi-part series. So this video would not contain all the information we need, but in this first video, we'll be going through a lot of things, which is uh, like how to configure an SSO or OIDC application in your Mendix application, and how to connect the SSO with your Mendix application. So this first video will be very simple, but it will be it will have a lot of value. So doing basic setup and how to use deep links with SSO. So yeah, there is a lot of things to that's going to come in. So this is my sample application that I have built on Okta. So for our OIDC application or authentication server, I'll be using Okta as a service. There are multiple services available. So uh, it's called Ping Identity, or you could use your Google and Facebook as we discussed earlier as well. But for this video, I'm using Okta. So the way we'll be going through is we have a login page on our local host, and when you click on login via Okta on the login page, it will take you to an Okta page where you can put in your username and password. So when we send a request from localhost to Okta, what we do is we send in these are again, these are, if you read through the OIDC documentation, you will understand what all what all different types of um, what are different scopes, what are different request types, what URL parameters you can send, right? What's a redirect URI, and all those things. So if you don't want to read through the whole documentation, I suggest going through this particular video. It is a long video, but it has a lot of value, right? So it is not for someone who does not who is a newcomer or beginner, right? In terms of SSO, so you need to have some understanding of SSO to be able to fully understand this video. So what we'll do is, when someone clicks on this link, uh, we send a request to Okta. So that is this particular. This is again trial 6.5 is my authentication server. So if mine wasn't a trial, then I would have an actual server name over here. So it would be something like goldenearth.okta.com or neil.okta.com. I could purchase something like that. But for now, this is my URL, and then the after authorize the URL parameters I send are, I want the response type as code, response mode as query, and the redirect URL should be OAuth v2 callback. So once the user finish successfully authenticates themselves, they'll be redirected to this particular URI. So I need to tell Octown where they need to send my user. So once they do that, also, I'm sending scopes as OpenID, email, and profile. I could be sending more, could be sending less, but these are the basic configuration setups. Um, Once the user has successfully authenticated themselves, it sends a response back to my Mendix application, to the callback URI that I had provided in this parameter. So callback, and then I've also requested the response type as code. So it also sends me some kind of a code which my Mendix application will catch, and it'll use that code to request some more parameters from Okta, and and then and um, and then a JWT token, right? So a JOT token, and which will be parsed, and which will be parsed by again the Mendix application, and then on basis of that will create a, it will create a user for me. Now we will be looking into the whole OIDC module in full depth in the future videos, but again, for this video we'll be just looking at the configuration and the basic setup that we have, right? So let's go to the let's first start with the front end on how we are going to do everything. So that's my local host. As I said, we have login via Okta. So if I click on this, it will take me to the connection page, and once I say next, it has a two-factor authentication where it sends a push notification to my device. So I'm going to go ahead and take my device and accept it over here. So once I accepted the push notification, uh, it takes me and it says the authentication was successful, and it brings me to the home page. I could have done the same thing with the password as well, but uh, because I've turned on two-factor authentication, and I've logged in multiple times on this one, on this computer or this browser before making this tutorial, it directly gives me the push notification instead of password and push notification both. So um, yeah, those are some things you can configure in your authentication server application. So basically, if it is Okta, then it is this application where you can configure everything, right? What rules you want, what rules you don't want for the user so logging into your application. Again, that's out of scope for this video, so we won't go into details for those things. So now once you're authenticated, once Okta says that, oh yes, we recognize this user, the username password matches, two-factor authentication matches, and it is a success, so you can go ahead and assign a user role to this particular user. um, we come back into this application, and what we do is we see here that, okay, now on the front end we're already logged in, right? And Mendix handle everything for us. So now, in this case, because we are using an external authentication server, there are two different logouts that we have. One is a Mendix logout, and one is OIDC logout. right? So Mendix logout is just the logout button. So if you, for example, if you go to any page, right, and if you look for sign out, sign out, this is sign out button. That is the Mendix basic logout, right? So we don't want to use this, and because we're authenticating the user through OIDC, we don't want to log in a user using this one, but we want to use OIDC's logout. So that's why we have the OIDC logout, because if you sign out from Mendix, it'll still sign you out, right? So what happens? It'll sign you out because the Mendix session is or user session is deleted. But once you go to login via Okta, what it does is there is some cookie on your browser, right? Which OIDC will put in, or there's some storage on your browser. Again, we'll talk about that in detail in the future videos. But there's something stored on your local storage, which when you click on login via OIDC, Okta recognizes that, and it already knows that you are already logged in into this application. So once you click on that, it then does not ask you for a username and password. It tells Mendix that, oh, this user is already authenticated, so you don't have to worry about this particular user. You can sign them in. So that's what it is, right? So again, it brings you back to this page and says, oh, welcome home, Neil Desai, and all those things. But if you were to sign out using OIDC, it means it signed you out of Mendix application and also on the authentication server. So now if you again go to do login via Okta, it takes you to the login page and you have to do the whole authentications stuff as well. Now, it will, once I have clicked the or accepted the everything on my phone, it brings me back over here and starts a fresh new session on the authentication server and Mendix as well. Now while we are here, let's sign out for one more time, and let's see. Now this is the front end of the application, right? Now also let's see how the whole setup works for an administrator, right? So just by creating an Okta account, it does not do everything for you. You need to have, you need to set up all these client ID, client secret, and all those things into your application as well. What's the callback URL and all those things, right? So if we have set up a callback URL over here, we need to tell our application also to do all those things for us. So this is the so this is our homepage, and for an administrator again. So that's a home. If you go to OIDC config, I've added a config over here, right? Um, so how do you create all this? So the the module here, that is the marketplace module OIDC. I've already installed this, so it will come once once you download this module. It will come in your app marketplace modules, and then over here as an OIDC, right? So it has a very good documentation. So I would suggest go through each and every step, right, to configure your application. But they have tested this OIDC Connect client with multiple applications. So it's on Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Okta, Bing, and there are many other providers that they've tested with. So this is a very good module again. So how to install this? First, download this module in our app, right? And then once you've done it, you also need to make sure you have community commons. So I have the I have the community commons over here module. I have the NanoFlow commons over here. Yes. Because I'm not using this on native, I don't need the native mobile resources. But if I were to use it, I would need it, right? And what else do we have? I have the encryption module as well. So these are the very important ones. Also, I want to set up deep link with this module so that if a non-logged in user clicks on a deep link, right, it should take them to the login page, and once they're logged in, it should take them to the deep link page and not the dashboard. So if you don't set up deep link the right way, it will not take you to the home page, or it will just take you to the home page and not take you to the page that you are supposed to go. So I've added a deep link module as well. Now you need to do the admin user role assignments, all those things. So once you download this application, you will be able to see all those things, um, the roles I've assigned, and everything, right? So these are the security roles I've assigned. But once I give you access to this application, you should be able to look at everything. Now, the main thing we need to do is the administrator page, right? So once I have the app or the admin module where I have the OIDC config page created, where I've added the snip underscore configuration snippet, and that takes care of everything because that is this particular page over here. So this snippet, right? And so once I've done that, it will let you add new configurations for any OIDC apps. So once I go inside, also need to make sure that um, it is active and you set it as default for you to use, right? So once you do that, what you need to do is you can give it any name that you want that you can remember. Client ID is what you will get in your authentication server application. So for me, this is the client ID, right? Once I've done that, for now I'm selecting the authentication method as basic, but you could also select something called post, set it as active, right? And once you do that, what you'll also, for most of the authentication servers, um, uh, there is a very good thing, which is you put in your like the authentication server domain, and then dot well known slash openid configuration. So you should be able to fetch in all the necessary endpoints below using this import config button. So if all these fields were, I was setting up a um, new authentication server in this OIDC config, then all these fields would be empty. So the great thing is that if you have automatic configuration URL, just put it in and hit import configuration. It will fetch all the below values for you. The only thing you'll have to populate is what your callback URL is. So which again I've set up over here um, as this one. So sign in redirect URL is what I have to put it in the callback section, so that what it means is once a user has been successfully fully authenticated, it will again send the user back or to this page in your Mendix application with some kind of code that we saw over here. So this is that URL, right? Now once you're done with that, uh, you need to select all the scopes that you want to add as well. and and for now we have um, claims are out of scope for us, so or for this video, so I won't be talking about that. But again, for user provisioning, you need to select multiple options over here. We have multiple options over here. So we're using standard OIDC because the Okta works fine with standard OIDC. So that's how you set up your OIDC config. Now let's go back to our Mendix application and see what it says, right? So um yeah, so if you follow all these steps, right, you just on this one, it's ask on step 8, it's asking you um to start using the snippets on the login page again. So this is very important. So say my login page has this snippet where it's allowing a user so you first land on some page, right? For example, if it is my website called goldenearth.com, then I could put in this small button on golden earth, which say, and then when you click on it, it'll take you to the authentication to the Okta page, right? So that could be one thing. And if your application homepage, you want it to be a login page, then there is one more snippet that you could use. um, that is so Let me drag this for you. So that is this one, the automatic, right? So if you use this automatic snippet, it'll take you directly to the it'll take you directly to the app to the login page as soon as you launch this application. It will not wait for you to click on the login button. So let's try that out. Give me 1 second. Sign out. Okay, let's close this. save and run. Okay, so let's do view app. It'll take me directly to the Okta page. You saw that, right? So I did not have to click on any button. The reason for this is because this snippet, it is an automatic login snippet. But again, let's put the previous one so that it lets us click on a button and then start the login flow, right? Because that's what we should be doing in general cases. Now, Now you also see that once you click on login via Okta, it keeps taking you to an Okta page. So you cannot, for now, we don't have a custom login page, right? So in the next video, I'll also be discussing how to set up a custom login page and do the whole authentication flow through APIs and not the URL redirect part. That we in the API flow also you'll have some URL redirects, but it'll keep you in your application and not take you through the um, to a different URL. So for now, if you see the URL change to Okta, and then once you sign in, it takes you back to your to your application, right? So you're switching between applications. So in future, when you once we start logging in through APIs, there won't be switching between multiple applications, and you could be able to customize your own UI for everything. So that's that. Now, once we've done that, we also need to make sure we set up an encryption key in the module. So once you've set up an encryption module, and if you go to app settings and default, and then you have a constant over here. So you can set up an encryption key of 32 characters. Um, right, there are many online encryption key generators, so you can use one of them and create an encryption key for you um, for 32 characters length. So you don't have to worry about what it does and why it does and all those things, right? So OIDC takes care of it, but that's one thing that's important for OIDC. Now, um, it's also asking us to do replace the page layouts for all the pages, right? So which is okay. It's just for aesthetic purpose, so that your all your pages in the application using the same layout, right? So it is important but not critical for the app to function. Now, again, the see it's asking us to use the act underscore logout nano flow to perform a logout on your application server, right? So this is what we discussed for having the two logout buttons. So again, you could use one of the two buttons on how you want it to be, right? So if you want your user to be always logged into your authentication server, and it is not a critical application, then you need not perform the OIDC logout every time, and set up a default timeout on your authentication server to be, say, for example, 30 days or 1 year or however you want, right? So for one of the examples for that is, say for example, if you go to facebook.com and you close your browser, right, and you don't delete your cookies, then you'll stay on that browser or logged in on that browser until you change your username or password, or until you log out manually or you clear your cookies. So you don't have to log in every time you go to facebook.com, but that's what it is. Again, this second this part says on how to configure your provider. So again, that's what we went through already. How to configure this app is what we went through in the admin section, and all those things, right? So this is the custom user provisioning microflow, or where will where you can change what kind of users you want to create, what values you want, what you don't want. But we'll be looking at this in detail in future videos. So now the last step is about how to configure deep links, right? So if you look at this step, it's just one step on how to configure deep links. So if you go to your deep link module and you look for implementation and configuration, there's a constant called login location. So you just have to put this value in login location, or login location constant, and it will handle the whole authentication process for you, right? you also need to make sure that you have the complete deep link set up for your app, and not this only this location won't help. So if you want to learn how to set up deep links in your application, you can watch one of my previous videos, and you'll also find it linked in the description below. And so I have a homepage or default homepage where you can click here, and uh, so this is my default homepage. So when someone comes in, I check if it's a deep link or not. If it's a deep link, then just end the flow here because the user is already taken to the deep link flow. Otherwise, show home underscore web, right? So that's all the deep link flow in this application. You could have it much more complex, navigate to home flow, but for this, because it's a simple application, we don't worry about it. So I have set up a deep link already in my application. So let's take a look at that one. So I have a deep link here, which is a demo deep link, and this is the URL. So if you copy this URL, or if you open this URL in a deep link, then it should take the user to that particular page. But before that, it should also ask the user to log in, because um, we have this do not force login is turned off, which means the user will be forced to log in before they go to this page, right? So let's say, and because this is an admin login, the Mendix admin login is not through the authentication server for this application, right? Because this is app specific admin login, so we don't need to have OIDC for that. So if you do OIDC sign out, then it will give you an error. So I'll do Mendix sign out for this one. Now remember, you don't have to show these two sign out buttons always. Because I wanted to demonstrate two different sign out options available, I had put in two different sign out options. But you could put it as a visibility condition in your headers or layouts, right? Header layout, where you check what role it is. So if it's an admin, then show them the Mendix sign out, and if it's a user, then show them the OIDC sign out if you want, or Mendix sign up if you want. So that's one. So say I'm putting the deep link here that I just copied earlier, and if I hit enter, it will bring me to this login page. And once I hit next, it'll send a push notification on my phone. And once I say it's yes, it's me, I accept it on my phone. It will take me uh, it'll log me in and take me directly to the example page, which is you arrived on this page through a deep link. This is this simple page that I've put in, which is just a text box, right? But it's actually this page, and it did not take me to the home page where it says, oh, home Neil Desai. So if I were to do a regular login, it will take me to the home page and not this deep link page. So let's hit next, and try again to log in. So now that I'm logged in, it'll take me to the home page and not the deep link page, because this is the deep link page. So that's how you see that deep link also works fine with the OIDC sign in or login as well, right? So this is a very simple setup, and even if you don't fully understand, or if you don't understand every minute detail of what a SSO is or what OIDC is, you are still able to set up an authentication server or external authentication server on a Mendix application, and build the whole flow, because the OIDC module is so powerful, and the um, and the uh, Mendix, the whole software is so powerful that you don't have to go and write each line of code where you have to worry about the multiple scenarios, right? So OIDC and Mendix takes care of those things. You just have to do your basic app setup. So in future videos, again, we'll be discussing how to do the whole thing using a custom login page, where you don't have to worry about how uh, everything looks on this login page, because you don't have any control over this, right? Or you have limited control over this login page, where you are taken to a separate application for authentication. So yeah, stay tuned for that video, and we'll also be discussing how the whole OIDC module works. Like for example, if we go here, um, there is something in the login flow, or if you, sorry, if you go over, okay, um, so if you go over this, okay, access for IPA authentication pages are here. So that's what we'll be discussing in the future. But yeah, if you look at this implementation flow, if you look at this configuration, again, login flow, if you see this callback, so a web callback, and you see OAuth 2.0. So this is what happens when someone, or not when someone, when your authentication server, where you set up the web callback URL. So when you set up this particular callback URL, what it does is, or what your Mendix application does is, it is listening on this port for a get call, right? So when your browser does it, you get this callback as, oh, callback. So this is your resetup, and then it sends a code. So Okta sends us a code, and we use that code to do the further processing. So if you look at this particular microflow that needs to be executed when a flow happens, right? So that's what it handles the whole thing over here, where it handles the once the authorize so it handles the authorization code that we received. Now what it does is, we will just briefly glance through this and go in detail in the future, but it checks if the code exists or not. If it does, it does its stuff, where it keeps going forward about with the callback URL and all those things. It sends a response to the API as well. Um, but once you do all those things, what it goes and does for you is, it creates a user account using the custom user provisioning. So once you go to this, it create and use the sample provisioning, it will create an account for you. So remember in the admin, where we set up the three different flows on what we want. So if it was Salesforce, it would have gone here. If we're using user provisioning, it would have gone here, but we use the standard flow, right? So it is, let's go back to that page and I'll show you. So if you go to OIDC config, at the bottom, when we select what flow we want to use, we have these three options. Because we chose the standard OIDC flow, um, it will take you using this one. So what this does is, it checks for multiple things and returns a user account, which means that once the user was successfully authenticated, we created a Mendix account for them, which is the administration, from the administration module, right? So which is also a generalization of the system.user object, basically. So once this account is set up, it returns this to the calling microflow, and the whole process happens here. But this all these things are done by Mendix, or the OIDC module, and we don't have to worry about how a user is being created once Okta or any other authentication server says, okay, it has accepted the user, right? So again, these are some things that we have that we have in this module, but I'll definitely walk you through all those things in the detail, because I don't want to make this a 5 hour long video. Instead, I would split it into multiple parts, right? And so, because we've already gone past probably 30 minutes, I guess, by now. And yeah, this is already a lot of information. So again, feel free um, to comment on this video if you want access to this application. So yeah, once you I've committed all the changes. So as soon as you start, if you add in a comment saying you're interested in this Mendix application, I'll just add you into my team for this particular application, and you should have access to all of these. So I try to put in all the details I can in my commits as well. So you will see for every commit, it will give you some or the other information. So this was the initial upload, and then I started with adding multiple modules, turned on production level security, added anonymous roles. I renamed the module, added new modules, and then configured deep links, configured OIDC. Um, I added different layouts. So yeah, updated different layouts. But those are the things that I've done in this app. Now you will have to set up your own, or you will have to create your own authentication server on, say, on Okta or Ping Identity, or just use the Google or Facebook thing, right? It should be simple. So you don't I won't be able to give you access to my server because this is limited to my single user. And and uh and again, you should be able to create your account for free. So if you want to keep using the same styles, then just go to okta.com and create an authentication server for yourself. So if, for example, if I go to dashboard, it will give me all the details, right? So but yeah, so basically, if you go to okta.com, you should be able to create an account for yourself, and that should be, you should be good with that, I think. Yeah. um, but yeah, you can again add new users to the application. For now, I've added only one user to my server application, right? Um, so I could only show you add logging in using one user, but if I added more users, then I would have been able to show you how to log in with multiple users. But yeah, I think we should be good for now with this video. But if you want to take another look uh, at my settings in Okta, and if you want to use the same settings, your client ID and secret would change, but everything else would remain the same, right? So these are my basic settings: is given a name, which shouldn't matter, but I have client credentials and refresh token and authorization code. I'm using a persistent token right now, but you could rotate tokens if you want uh, between every logins or every session. Um, and yeah, user consent is, I've set it as required for now. Shouldn't matter a whole lot in the basic setup, but we'll go through those details in the future as well. I have my callback URL set up to this one. My sign out redirect URL is what, when you do an OIDC sign out, where you should take the user, right? So you can go here, click edit, and change any of these configurations if you want. So say if you want the user to go to xyz.com on sign out and not to your back to your login page, and you could send them there. Um, so yeah, I think this is all we have for now, and I think we should be good. So I'll show you one more look at the at the setup in the Mendix application as well. And yeah, I think you should be good to go with all these updates, right? So thank you so much for watching this video and liking my content until now. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're watching this video outside LinkedIn, then my LinkedIn profile will be in the description below. um, yeah, and thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Have a good day.